Welcome everybody, and it's great to have everybody back again, those people who've been here for the last 7 weeks with us. We've been covering a lot of South Africa, but today we're moving on to Botswana. I'm very excited to be discussing Botswana with you. It really is the most magnificent wildlife destination. So I just thought I'd start with just again showing you exactly where Botswana is in comparison to South Africa. Your entry point would be to fly into Johannesburg, and from there you would either fly up into Maun or you would fly up into Kasane. We spoke a little bit about Kasane last week. It's the entry just over the border here into Zimbabwe. So those would be your two entry points. There are daily flights between Johannesburg and Maun and Johannesburg and Kasane. There's also a flight between Cape Town and Maun for those people who are wanting to fly into Cape Town and then from there travel up into Botswana. So today I'm going to give you an overview of Botswana. We're going to be discussing Botswana for the next 2 weeks, so the next 3 weeks, 3 sessions. So I'm not going to go too in depth, but I just want to give you a general overview of Botswana. So Botswana has a population of 2.3 million people, which is quite a small population, of which about 208,000 of those live in the capital city down here, which is Gaborone. And it has an average population of 4 people per 1 kilometer squared, which is quite incredible if you think about it. The reason being is that the vast majority, this whole central region of Botswana, is the Central Kalahari Desert, which obviously has a very low population density. This area down here is really sort of more business, mining and cattle. And then the main area that we're going to focus on today is this area really up in the north, which is the tourism hub of Botswana. And really this entire area is a free roaming massive wildlife area, just with free roaming game traveling all around in this area here. So Botswana's tourism philosophy is low density tourism, low impact tourism. So it's high value, low impact tourism, which basically means that the camps are really small, intimate camps. Most of them have between 8 and 12 tents or chalet type accommodations. They're small lodges. The way that you would get in between them is, because I'm going to speak to you a little bit about all these waterways in the north of Botswana here. So the way you would get into the camps is you would generally fly in. So you would arrive in Maun and then you would fly into each small little camp on a small charter flight, which normally takes anything from 6 people up to sort of 12 people on a small charter plane. And these charter planes land in the different regions of the areas that we're going to be speaking about, and then you'll be collected by the lodges in a vehicle and taken through to the lodge. So I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about this Okavango Delta. The Okavango Delta is probably one of the most well-known regions of Botswana, and an absolutely fascinating area. Because there's 2 phenomena in the Okavango Delta that make it quite unique. So first of all, to tell you that the floods, the water that comes into the delta actually originates in the Angolan highlands, and the rainy season in the Angolan highlands is between November and the end of March. This water then travels all the way down the Okavango River through Angola. The Okavango River then forms the border over here between Angola and Namibia. It finally crosses through the Caprivi Strip. This is a small section of Namibia. And it finally comes down into the northeastern area here of Botswana, where it fans out. You can see in this left-hand picture here, it fans out into a delta which looks like a big leaf. And one of the most incredible phenomenon here is that it is one of only 2 rivers in the world which doesn't end in the sea. It in fact comes down here, forms a large delta, and finally sort of comes to rest in the desert region here, in the Kalahari Desert and the Mkhadi Pans, which we'll speak about later, and where it just gets absorbed into the, it evaporates and gets absorbed into the sands. So that is a very unusual situation. I believe the other one is in North America, and that makes it quite unique. The other thing that makes it quite unique is that I said to you the rains start in November to March up in the Angolan highlands area. This takes 1,600 kilometers and many months to come all the way down. It finally reaches this delta area in around the end of May, and the floods reach their peak season in July, August, which is when we have the most water down in this area. However, that is still called the dry season. The rains in Botswana are actually sort of from the end of November until the end of February, which is actually called the wet season. So again, quite an unusual phenomenon that they call it the, although the waters are at their highest flood in July, August, it is still the dry season in Botswana. So just quickly a little bit about, while we're talking about that, the dry season and the wet season. The dry season, which being July, August, is peak season in Botswana, and a very, very popular time to go to Botswana. Obviously, that is the one thing about Botswana: smaller camps, fewer camps. It needs to be booked quite a long time in advance. If you want to get in between July and August in Botswana, you need to book, I would say, a year out. There will always be certain camps available, depends if you're looking for anything in particular, but it certainly does get filled up very, very quickly, specifically this region here. For birders, though, we have an enormous amount of migratory birds that come into this region between over the rainy season, so between November to February, and also that is when all the babies are born, so it's also a really great time to come. So moving on then, I just to the types of activities that one gets in the Okavango Delta. So I'm going to be talking quite a bit about land camps and water camps. And obviously the Okavango Delta region is where you would find all of your water camps. So if you have a look at this picture, this whole area is made up of rivers, little tributaries, and it's very much a big wetland area. So here you would not be able to go on game drives in the Okavango Delta region. It is very much water-based activities. You see here in the bottom left-hand picture, there's a lot of boating where you'll go up the beautiful little canals, and these in the bottom right-hand corner are wooden dugout canoes made by the Botswana people. These are called makoros, and here you'll see you go on the makoros through the waterways. You will be taken by a polar. He stands on the back of the makoro with a large pole, and he will push you through the waterways. It's quite a magical experience. It's quiet, it's peaceful, incredible bird life, and just a beautiful, beautiful way to see a lot of the game as it comes down to the river. So it's again the beautiful birding site. The other thing that's quite popular in the Delta region is walking safaris. But again, as I said, no game drives in this region for obvious reasons. There's, you can't drive around in the waterways. So I'm going to move on to the Moremi area. So the Moremi area, as you can see, this is the stretch here, the Okavango Delta, as it pans out, and the Moremi area is on the eastern side of the Okavango Delta. So the difference between the Okavango Delta and the Moremi Reserve is that this area here is made up of, there's obviously more land area available. So you have here these big, deep waterways here where you've got your water activities. But then in this area over here, you can see you can do your game drives. This Kwai area here is a private area which allows you to do game drives and walks. as well as water safaris. Chief's Island is very well known. It's a huge sand island, incredible game viewing in this area. So basically the area of the Moremi allows you to do both land-based activities as well as walking safaris, as well as your water-based activities, and a huge high density of game in this area. So you can see here incredible leopard sightings, lion, as well as wild dog. And then of course you've also got all your plains game and birding in the area. Right. So we've spoken about this area here, which is the delta, going into the Moremi Reserve. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit about this Savuti area over here. So the Linyanti and the Savuti area, this one, the Linyanti has got more water and the Savuti area is a drier area. So in contrast to the Okavango Delta and the Moremi, where you have large waterways and a lot of water and boating activities. The difference here is as you can see, the Savuti area is a lot more semi-desert-like. We don't have permanent water in this area at all. There is a small river that flows sometimes. It didn't flow for nearly 80 years, and eventually it started flowing again. So it's not definite, but there are permanent water holes in the Savuti area called the Savuti Marsh region. So, and as you can see from this picture up on the top left-hand side, when the rains do come, this whole region just gets converted into the most beautiful, huge open plains of grassland. Now you can well imagine that we have a lot of huge herds of buffalo, zebra, plains game in the area. And with that comes the most incredible cat sightings. So this area in particular is very well known for all of the cats, large herds, incredible prides of lion, leopard sightings, cheetah. It's incredible. So this is the Savuti Marsh region. And again, I said to you, you've got a couple of permanent water holes in this area. So there's, I mean, the game viewing in this area is always absolutely incredible because you've got this infiltration of game coming down to the water holes in these dry semi-desert regions to come down to drink. It's a great combination with the water-based areas such as the Okavango Delta because of the fact that the huge contrast in topography, the huge contrast in the type of landscape that you get, and obviously with that the wildlife. Any questions before I carry on? Anyone got any questions about any of these regions?
Yes, folks, if you got any question, please key them into the chat and Nicki will answer them, okay? Yeah, so I think we have a question here. Let me see. Okay, I think this is from Brenda, okay, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see. Okay, she was asking, when does the mating season starts for Botswana? And then generally, what months are the months where they give birth, the wildlife give birth?
Okay, all right, so basically they normally will give birth during the rainy season. So they wait for, most animals will wait for the rains to come before giving birth. So as I mentioned to you, that would be sort of the months of any time from the end of November up until the end of February. Mating season really depends on the gestation period of the different types of games. So one would work back from there. But basically, if you're wanting to see the babies being born, the best time is in the sort of November to March times.
November to March. So Nicki, actually Botswana has a very fertile piece of land. So that means that there's actually a lot of water, and then plants, you know, could grow. And because water is the source of life, right? So this means that if there's a stability in terms of the livelihood of the animals, and then the life cycle of them would also more or less be constant. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean the density of game here is unbelievable, and obviously it is a completely you know, the environment, it all sustains itself.
Right.
And you have sort of these migrations of animals flowing with the waters. So it's incredible that you know, we have this continual flow of wildlife right through that whole area, depending on the times of the year, the water levels, and obviously everything really depends on the water levels and the vegetation.
Right. Okay. So JP was asking, is the area malaria free, or is there any medicines that is required, or you know, vaccination required for Botswana?
Sure. So Botswana is a malaria area, and it would definitely be advisable to take malaria medication.
Okay, thank you for that. So hope that answer your question, JP. And then Ian was asking that Botswana is so beautiful, you know, so is it commonly filmed by National Geographic, Nat Geo?
Yes, very much so.
Obviously, right? Yeah, I think that this place is kind of like a very special place, one of its kind. Not that many places on Earth actually has this similar ecosystem. Maybe the other one is in Florida, the Everglades. Yeah, but that is still pale in comparison to what you see in
Definitely.
Botswana.
The density of the game, you know, as I was showing you on the map earlier, really the entire northern region of Botswana is just one massive game corridor, with no fencing, nothing in between it. The animals completely roam freely. And in fact, you know, I've often said, when you're driving in Botswana, it's definitely animals have right of way. I mean, I have driven many times in Botswana where, you know, even on the national highways, you know, you have to stop because there's elephants crossing the road, you know, or there's a pride of lions. It's just, that's how it is. It's a complete corridor, game corridor, all the way across that whole northern stretch of Botswana.
So
it
you
really
can
is an
drive like
incredible wildlife.
yeah, so you can drive like
Wildlife
120 kilometers per hour.
Yeah, you do have to drive slowly.
Okay, right. Okay, we have a question
Right.
also from Ben. Ben is asking, does the Okavango Delta area keeps changing with the rainfalls? Okay, and would the water holes area be different at different times?
Yes, so very much so. So as I mentioned, the peak of the flood as it comes in is July and August, and that is where you're going to have the maximum amount of water across the area. And slowly this starts to recede. So the driest area, the driest time of the delta is probably around sort of September, October, before the rain starts. So the rains then will start in end of November. October can be very hot in Botswana. It's just prior to the rains and the end of the season, so can be very hot. But definitely then you will find all the water slowly receding and obviously less water in the area. This, you know, it doesn't make, I mean, there's game viewing throughout the year in Botswana. The game is just sort of moving all the time, almost like a little migration. You know, so it's not going to impact on the game, but certainly July, August is a lot of game coming down to the area as that high water comes in.
Okay, I see. Okay, as usual, we have a very, very good question from Stella once again. And thank you, Stella, for joining us all the way from Beijing. And Stella was asking that for wildlife experience, okay, do you actually recommend staying in water-based camp, okay, or land-based ones, or better to be a mixed camp? Because we have seen Moremi and we have seen Okavango Delta already. So we have the land-based and we have the water-based, right? Okay. So how much percentage of water activities versus game drives do you actually recommend?
All right, so I was going to come to this at the end of the presentation, and perhaps if Stella doesn't mind, if I can just show you the next couple of slides, and then I'm going to come back to answer that question, because then I think it will make more sense. Is that okay? Stella, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm sure she will be. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so I'll just take this
Okay.
question and then we'll revisit that.
I'm going to answer that question once I've shown you just a few more regions of Botswana. So, right, just before, I'm going to carry on now with the Chobe region. So the Chobe region is in the northeastern side of Botswana. And here you get here you've got permanent waterways of the Chobe River, and again this also does increase in sort of in the floodplains. You get more and less water flowing all the time throughout the year, but essentially as a totally permanent water source in Botswana, you always have massive concentrations of game, and specifically this Chobe region is most well known for its massive herds of elephant. Here, the types of activities, again, you have both water and land activities. So your open vehicle game drives in the Chobe National Park, but then here you have every afternoon or every morning you have boat cruises up and down the Chobe River. And I mean, these are the types of pictures that you're going to be taking from on the bottom of the screen here. These are all pictures taken from the boats on the river. So here the sightings are really incredible of hippo, crocodile, elephants, and of course your bird life and many other types of animals. So then I just want to move down to the central Kalahari area. So this is right in the center of the country. We spoke a little bit about the semi-desert region of the Kalahari. Here again, completely different landscape. Definitely you don't have the density of game that you do in the Okavango, Moremi, Sabuti area, but the landscape is just absolutely magnificent. That openness of the desert landscape, the large herds of springbok. It's well known for the black maned lion. And of course, you have different activities like the mongoose and the gemsbok. It really is just a beautiful area to be in, and in total contrast to the waterways up in the north. Right, so just to show you, that area here was down in the central Kalahari. All right, so here you're seeing all your waterways up in the northern area, your central Kalahari. And then I'm going to finish off, and then I'm going to answer Stella's question with the Makgadikgadi Pans over here. So this Makgadikgadi Pans region, as you can see, we were talking about the rivers of the Okavango Delta. This is where the river finally flows out into sort of nothing, and this area literally transforms from these massive salt pans, which look something like this, huge open tracts of salt pan, into this massive grass, these massive sort of floodplains. And I mean, most of you have heard about people always speak about the migration that happens in the Serengeti and the Masai Mara in Kenya and Tanzania, but most people don't know that here we have a massive migration as well happening in November, December, January through these Makgadikgadi region and up into the northern reaches. So this massive zebra migration is also absolutely incredible to watch. Here you can see in this area they do quad biking through these desert moonscape sort of landscapes, and it's also very well known for the Bushman activities. This is where traditionally the Bushmen lived, and it's absolutely fascinating to go walking out with them and learn about their culture, learn about hunting and gathering and tracking, and they have so much to teach. It's really an incredible experience to be out there with them. So right, So now, Stella, I'm going to get back to your question of the land and the water-based camps. Obviously, one of the highlights of going to Botswana, and one of the things that one would do, and we'll speak a lot more about this next week and the week afterwards, is when you go to Botswana, you want to have the combination of the water and the land-based camp. And to answer your question as to how long one would spend in each area, obviously a lot of that depends on the length of time that you have in total in Botswana, but I would always recommend spending at least 2 nights in a water-based camp to experience the waterways, the Makoro, the walking safaris. Just that complete peace and tranquility of the Delta is absolutely magnificent. And then you would combine it with a land-based camp. Be that if you have a shorter amount of time, then a combination between the Okavango and the Moremi is very easily done. You could do 2 nights in Okavango, 2 nights in Moremi. If you are able to combine it with a third camp, then you could certainly do, for example, 2 nights in Okavango, 2 nights in Moremi, and then, for example, 2 nights in the Savuti region or the Chobe region, or going down into the Makgadikgadi Pans or the Kalahari Desert. That would really give you a complete overview of all of the different types of activities that you can get in Botswana. And I think that's obviously one of the main things that we try to achieve when putting a package together for Botswana, is to give you the total variety. Have I answered that question? Yes?
Yeah, I think she's thinking about it. Yeah, let's see. Thanks. Okay, great. Okay, and yeah, so she's also asking about maybe, you know, for your recommendation, how many percentage of water-based activities versus game-based activities would you recommend? Because personally, maybe on my part, I was thinking that Botswana being such a unique destination, you know, you could do the water-based activity, and then and also the chance of doing the wildlife photography is great, you know, on the boats itself. So I will probably place a little more emphasis on that, you know, although the game drives will also be good. But then it's nice you can do that, plus you know, the Makoro and also the walking safaris, you know, all together. So I think you have a very, very nice mix of different kinds of safaris that you could do. And not forgetting the food safari. The food is also great, right?
Definitely. It always amazes me how they manage to get, you know, into such remote places. And that is what's so wonderful about Botswana, is wherever you are, you just feel so remote. You know, it's like you're in the middle of this complete wildlife area all on your own, you know, just with maybe, you know, 16 other people in the camp with you. And yet somehow, like you say, they managed to come up with the most incredible food and cuisine and everything. It's really lovely.
Right.
But yeah, Stella, I think just to answer your question, I think probably 50%, depending on how long. It really depends, and I think this is why it's really important on your interests. It really depends on your interests. Definitely, if you're a photographer and if you are into bird life, I would say the Okavango Delta region and the Moremi region is absolutely incredible for that. Other people will tell you the Makgadikgadi Pans is also an incredible region for birding. So if you know, the migratory birds that come through there as well, especially in the rainy season, in the summer months, in November to March, is really incredible. It depends. You know, if you're wanting, again, walking safaris, you can do in the Delta area. I would say that a good combination of both, maybe 50%, depending if you're sort of spending 10 days in Botswana, I probably wouldn't spend 50% in the Okavango Delta. I would split it then over 3 different lodges in 3 different regions. So we haven't, you know, there's a lot of, we haven't spoken about the Linyanti, which I'll cover next week, but that's also a region where there's water-based activities as well as land-based activities, depending on the time of the year that you go there, and also very high concentrations of game. So there's different areas that you can go into which will offer both land and water.
Okay. So JP was actually now looking at maybe he was thinking a 10-day trip for full package. I think so, right? Yeah. So Botswana, if you do like a 10-day, that would be really nice. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Then you can really get a good feel of all the different regions.
Sure. Okay. So I think Daniel is getting very excited. I could sense, you know, in his question. So he's actually asking, how does the water-based camps accommodation looks like in Botswana? So similar to those at Kruger and Victoria's Fall area. I think that you are coming to the accommodation sometime, right? Yeah, to show them.
I am.
Yeah.
So next week, if you can, next week we'll be focusing on, and I think over the next 2 weeks, what we're going to look at is combination itineraries. So next week we'll be having a look at some of the different camps, what they look like, how to best combine them, and the different regions. So I'll be showing you how to put together different itineraries around Botswana over the next 2 weeks, and we'll look at different camps in the different areas.
Nice. Okay. So Katie is asking, can we cook ourselves at the camp? You know, if there's a need to cook. Yeah. No.
Not really. I mean, there are, you know, look, it depends. It depends. I can't say no. But in the majority of the camps, obviously the camps are fully inclusive. It includes all of your meals, all of your drinks, all of your game drives, and absolutely everything. Because of the remoteness of these camps, it would be quite tricky to be able to have to be taking your own food with you.
Yes.
That would be quite difficult. However, there are regions of Botswana certainly where, and one of the things I will discuss over the next couple of weeks is the safaris, the camping safaris where you travel by car throughout Botswana, and they set up camp for you. Even then on those, they will cook for you. But if you really prefer to cook for yourself over the fire, then you certainly can.
I believe as long as we know the request before that, we can always discuss with the accommodation.
Completely.
Yeah, to
Absolutely.
see how that can be done.
The camps are really good about that. You know, as long as we know dietary requirements up front, they are very, very accommodating in terms of dietary requirements.
Sure. Okay, thank you, Nicki. Thanks for that input. So just to also answer Katie that do stay tuned to next week because we'll be showing pictures of the accommodation. Yeah, so join us next week and then you can see the various accommodation that is available in Botswana, okay? Yeah, so the other thing is Kanchan is actually asking, are there any mountains to hike in Botswana?
Not really. No, not really. In the left, the top northwestern sector of Botswana is the Tsodilo Hills. This is, I wouldn't say, you know, it's not a big mountain, but it's very interesting. Lots of Bushman rock paintings in that area. And a lovely area to visit, but slightly off the beaten track. So, you know, it would probably require an extra little bit of time in the Tsodilo Hills. The Savuti region, you've got the Goa Plain, the Goa Hills. But again, these are not really big mountains. They're more rocky outcrops and hilly regions.
Sure, yeah.
But Botswana is quite a flat country.
Yeah, I thought that maybe a very good one is to first get into Cape Town. You know, spend some time in Cape Town and then you could hike Table Mountain, you know, and then proceed on to Botswana and maybe just come back to Cape Town again to chill for another 2 nights before going home. You know, that would be wonderful. Yeah, provided, of course, if you have the luxury of time, I think that would be wonderful.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so and then Ian is especially fond of the sable antelope.
Okay.
So is it easy to see them and photograph them in Botswana?
Indeed, yes, it is. It is definitely easy to see them. So there are lots of sable antelope around. In fact, when I was in Chobe last, I saw sable antelope in Chobe. So yeah, you will definitely, you should be able to see sable.
It's quite difficult to see in South Africa, yeah? Harder.
Yes, yeah, yeah. There's a
Yeah.
couple of different types of buck that you'll find in Botswana that are quite unique to that region.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I think we have answered all the questions for now. So meanwhile, please keep your fingers busy and key in more questions while Nicki can cover on our 5 things to remember. Nicki.
Okay. All right, so 5 things I thought we'd sum up with a little 5 things to remember about Botswana. I think, first of all, just to come back, the most incredible, the Okavango Delta phenomenon. I think it's incredible that it's one of the only 2 rivers in the world that doesn't end in the sea, and just and the fact that the highest water levels in the delta are in fact during the dry season. This is quite an interesting phenomenon. Just again to go back to the fact that, and I think this is what makes Botswana so incredible, is the massive amount of space that is dedicated to wildlife and low impact tourism. So essentially, you know, you have low density of camps, high value, and this is what makes it such an incredibly spectacular destination. It is the land of rivers, waterways, woodlands, and deserts, which makes it so interesting in terms of diversity of activities that one can do. It is definitely one of the largest concentrations of wildlife on Earth. And again, we spoke about the difference between the land camps and the water camps. And next week, over the next 2 weeks, we'll be looking at how best to combine those.
Okay, thank you, Nicki. Thanks for that summary of what we've gone through today. So are there any more questions from our friends here today? You know, Nicki, the thing is that I think Botswana is theoretically more expensive in terms of if we are going there as a tourist. Okay, I think one of the main reason is because TripAdvisor has actually rated this as like the #1 place to visit some years ago, for 2 or 3 times actually. You know, so that kind of like brought the tourism in. Obviously, more people want to visit Botswana, but then it's also more expensive in that sense. Okay, so I think that this is a good point that we should let our friends know. Okay, but there's a reason why it's expensive. Okay, I think that because of the exclusivity of it. And the other thing is that somebody told me, somebody from the Beyond group told me that the camps were actually built without a solid foundation drilled into the ground, because the government gave them like a 10-year land parcel use. Okay, and then if any time they feel that they are not doing enough for the environment, they will have to tear camp and then restore everything back as if when they got it from day one. So they have to restore everything without the use of piling or nails or anything like that, you know, to create the accommodation. And because like what you have mentioned, the accommodations are mainly very small camps. Some of them maybe 8 units, you know, or maybe even 16.
Right.
That's already very big, you know. I think most of them are around 6 to 8. Yeah, so it's very, very intimate in that sense. So I think that is also the reason why it's more expensive, and also that the food and the logistics and the supply and everything will have to be brought in to the middle of nowhere, you know. Yeah, so actually to all our friends here, you know, for the value that you are paying is in fact very, very worth it, you know. And considering the wildlife and the opportunities that you get to photograph, I think that would be amazing. Yeah.
100%, Julian. Completely agree. It really is, and you're 100% right. You know, one of the incredible things about Botswana is the conservation ethic that goes on in Botswana, and the idea that you know, if that they can remove those camps, and they should be, you should not even be able to see that there was a camp there.
Yes.
So very high on conservation. And like you mentioned, you know, the only way to get into most of these camps is by small private plane, which also makes it such an interesting, I mean, it also makes it such a different different destination to get to, because you really feel like you're flying straight into the middle of the wilderness, which is what you're doing.
Yes, yeah. And if you are combining camps, and they can also arrange for you to transfer between the camps in helicopters, you know.
Yes.
So I think that is something that you folks can also look forward to, because that will be really exciting. And the helicopter ride in Botswana is a little bit different, especially for photographers, because they could remove the helicopter doors, the doors to the helicopter, and then you could be strapped on, and then you could still shoot from your seat. Okay, so not every places can fly drones now. Drones is getting increasingly difficult to find places to fly. But for Botswana, you can actually fly helicopters, and then you can get a very nice shot like the zebra ones, you know, that you can see over here. Yeah, so shots like that, you can actually get it. Yeah. So we have a question also from Ian. Ian is just asking, are lodges around the Delta more expensive in general compared to those in South Africa and East Africa? I think East Africa is still quite expensive because of the you know, the Great Migration that basically cooks everything up, and then it's quite expensive. But it's definitely more expensive than South Africa. Is that right, Nicki?
Yes, it is definitely more expensive than South Africa. I think another factor to remember is that most of the rest of Africa is US dollar based. Their rates are US dollar based, whereas in South Africa, it's a rand based rate, which is definitely for the majority of people a great bonus, because the exchange rate is really in your favor.
That makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, it really does make a lot of difference. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. So do we have any more questions coming in? We'll just give another 20 seconds, okay? Yeah, as usual, we'll have 20 seconds for that. And today is quite nice, you know, Nicki, we are still 13 minutes from time.
30 minutes?
13, 1-3.
Oh, 13, okay.
Yeah, 1-3, yes, yeah. So do we have any last questions from our friends here today? Thank you so much for the wonderful support, you know. Yeah, and we hope that you have learned a thing or two, as we tremendously enjoy sharing Africa with you. Okay, and Africa has always been my lifelong interest, you know, since the day where I love wildlife. You know, I've always been wanting to go to Africa and to see the various places. So Kancha is asking, are there places in Okavango Delta that we can fly drones? Do you know of any places we can fly drones?
Most places I don't think so, but I could, you know, I could check whether any of them would allow drones. But a lot of the game conservation areas now are not happy with drones being flown around.
Maybe if some of the private reserves.
Yes, maybe. So I think it's just, you know, it's just to try to control the numbers, and you know, obviously the impact on game, etc. So you can imagine that in game, you know, in some of the reserves, you know, they're not very keen to suddenly have loads of drones flying all over the show.
Yeah, because sometimes the animal will get a bit startled by the drone, right? The sound, and then the foreign object that's flying over their heads. Yeah. So yeah, JP was just asking, do you know what happened to that mysterious story about elephant's death in Botswana? Have you heard about that?
I did hear about it. That was a while ago, and no, as far as I still don't think that they've gotten to the bottom of that, of what happened.
Yeah, but okay, Kanchan, but if you are interested, I have heard before that there are some lodges in Botswana that allows that. Yeah, maybe the concentration of the wildlife is not really that great, but then you could still get very, very nice pictures of the landscapes of Botswana, you know, especially the waterway, and that's where you can fly the drone. And I'm sure they have some restriction in place. You know, if you get a lot of good concentration of wildlife and there's very rich interaction between the wildlife, you imagine that, you know, the lion has been waiting for that golden moment to go after the antelope, and then the drone come by and everything is gone, you know. Yeah, so we wouldn't want
have
that
an angry lion.
yeah, the lion, they will try to jump up and get that throne. Yeah, but you know, those are the things, because when they are hunting, they really need that concentration, you know. And sometimes just even like we say, a bird flying out of the bush, that could actually spoil the hunt, you know, for a lion. Yeah, so that's the reason why they have also tried to restrict the use of drones. But I'm sure there'll still be some places you can fly that, but we just need to check on that.
We could
Okay.
just find out about that.
Yes. So yeah, and I think that's it. That's all the questions we have for the session today, Nicki. It's wonderful to have everyone here with us once again. And thank you. We hope to see you back again next week. Okay. Yeah. So remember the same time, 8:30. Yeah. And thank you, Nicki, for your wonderful presentation once again today. And thank you everyone for joining us. Okay. You have a great week, and we'll see you again next week. Okay. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.